truly honored to have been asked to come and speak with you all today and share my story of survival with you. I thought I'd give you just a couple little personal items before I get started on my actual cancer story, because there is a lot more to life than just cancer. I'm not a Florida native, but I did grow up in Florida, in Merritt Island, actually, about 60 miles east of here. My dad was an engineer with the space program, and my mom was a registered nurse. I have an older brother and a younger sister. I've been happily married for 16 years. And although I don't actually have any children of my own, I was privileged enough to help my husband raise his son, who's now 25 years old and an active member and a lieutenant in the Florida National Guard. So we're very proud of him. I'm a dog lover. My Labradoodle Jack over there is a service dog, and we are now a certified therapy dog team, which allows us to go into hospitals and nursing homes and visit with people, which is something that I was inspired to do after I spent some time in the hospital and being ill. I make my living as an art director and a set designer, primarily for feature films, but also for the theme park industry here locally. So on with my story of survival. Like any good story, mine is written in 3 acts. And the first act I like to call the bad news. And for me, it all started with constipation. You know, you'd think, well, that's no big deal. Everybody gets constipated once in a while. But after a week or so, I got fed up and I thought, well, I'd better go and see a doctor about this. So I did, and about a week after that, I found myself being wheeled into surgery. And when I came out, they had removed a billiard ball-sized tumor, about 9 inches of my sigmoid colon, and I'd been fitted, unfortunately, with a colostomy. So a little over 4.5 years ago, at the ripe old age of 44, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. As soon as I recovered from that surgery, I started a 6-month regimen of chemotherapy. And then a few months after that, I was being wheeled back into surgery again. This time, fortunately, it was to reverse the colostomy. Now, the bad news was that during that surgery, they found that the cancer had spread to my uterus and both ovaries, promptly removing all of that stuff during that surgical procedure. And so at that moment, I was officially diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer. And that's where I am today. Now, the good news that day was that the colostomy reversal was a total success. And once again, I finally had an intact poop chute, and I was really excited about that. I remember sitting in my hotel room and calling my friends and family the first time I had a normal bowel movement again, and I said, I pooped. It was very exciting. So, at any rate, as soon as I recovered from that surgery, I went back for another 6-month round of chemotherapy. And then a few months later, I found that the cancer had spread yet again. This time it was in the soft tissue surrounding my sacrum bone, which is a little bone at the base of your spine. So for this go-around, I was treated to 8 weeks of radiation and followed that with a full year of chemotherapy. And as if that weren't enough, just this past spring, I found that it had spread yet again throughout my abdominal cavity, and I went through chemo again from June until just this past September. Now, I think it's important for me to mention here that I have absolutely no family history of cancer. None. 0. And I was only 44 years old when I was diagnosed, so I hadn't had my obligatory colonoscopy at 50 years old. I've never smoked. I've never been obese. I eat my vegetables. I don't eat a lot of red meat. I've never lived in a toxic environment. I don't have an especially stressful life. So what I'm saying is cancer can happen to anybody, and it certainly has happened to me, and it's still happening. I was diagnosed 53 months ago, and out of those 53 months, I've spent 39 months either recovering from surgery, on chemotherapy, or on radiation. That's 39 out of 53 months that I've spent actively fighting this disease. Being a cancer survivor is not a part of my past. It is my life. So that's the end of Act 1, the bad news. We'll move on to Act 2, which is the good news. And the good news is that I'm standing here today with a big smile on my face talking to all of you. There are myriad reasons for the fact that I am still alive today. One of them is because of the extraordinary army of medical professionals who decided to devote their lives, their talents, and their expertise to helping people like me. And in spite of all the horror stories that you hear about the medical community, especially lately, my experience with the world of healthcare has been really very positive. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by dedicated surgeons, oncologists, and nurses, and very kind and efficient technicians and administrators. Another reason I'm still here today is because of people like you who take your time and your energy and your money and you support the American Cancer Society. Many selfless people like you have done that over the years, and because of that, I have had access to drugs and diagnostic techniques that wouldn't have existed without you all. And I'm absolutely convinced that today we're raising money for people who will benefit from it who haven't even been diagnosed yet. So I'm glad you all are here. And the third and primary reason that I believe I'm standing here today is because of the wealth of caregivers who stepped into my lives. I know there's a lot of caregivers out here. I've had so many, I can't hardly count them. My husband, Scott, who's been there to hold my hand through thick and thin, good days and bad. My parents have been there for me. I know they wish they could just kiss it and make it all go away. My sister, who's always been available for me to just vent, which happens fairly often. I've got great friends down the street that take care of my dog like he was their own if I'm not able to. I've got girlfriends who've insisted that I get out and go have a good time, have a glass of wine. I've got neighbors and friends who provided meals, run errands, sent cards, letters, flowers, prayers, well wishes, you name it, the list just goes on and on. Sometimes I've been really overwhelmed at the kindness that I've been shown, and yet I often hear people remark that they don't know what to do, or they feel like they aren't doing enough, or that they don't really consider themselves to be caregivers. And I just want to say this about that. If you've ever picked up the phone and called a cancer patient just to let them know you're thinking about them, you're a caregiver. If you've ever visited someone in the hospital, sent a card or a letter, email or flowers, if you've ever provided a meal, mowed a lawn, run an errand, given someone a ride, or left a gift on someone's front porch, you are a caregiver. If you've ever offered a hug, a smile, an encouraging word, or a prayer, you're a caregiver. If you've ever donated your time, money, or energy to help eradicate this disease, you're a caregiver. And in my book, in my story, that makes you guys the heroes, my heroes. Okay, so that brings us to the finale of this big play that I'm part of. And the question is, how does my story end? Well, this one's going to be a cliffhanger because I don't know how this story is going to end. What I do know is that once cancer comes to call, for many of us, it never leaves. Thankfully, today there are a lot of people who overcome and go on to live long and healthy lives. And thankfully, there are many of us for whom cancer has become a chronic illness rather than the certain death sentence that it once was. For me, cancer is more like a shadow that just keeps following me around, won't leave me alone. For me, it's become not just a matter of survival, but one of perseverance and endurance. And in fact, my perseverance is still being tested because I found out just last week that my cancer is spreading again, so I'm going to have to make some decisions about what to do about that in the very near future. And sadly, there are still far too many people who are simply unable to overcome the ravages of this disease. Of these folks, we often hear it said that they lost their battle with cancer. I'm really not fond of that phrase, not at all, and I'll tell you why. Because to say that we've lost somehow implies that cancer has won, and I just don't see it that way. Will I win? Will I put cancer behind me and go on to live a long and healthy life? As sure as I'm standing before you today, I don't know the answer to that question. I just don't know. But regardless of the outcome, here's how I view that situation. If one person hears me speak today and consequently gets a colonoscopy, a mammogram, a PSA test, or decides to quit smoking, then I win. If one person offers a helping hand or sends up a prayer for someone in need, then I win. If one person donates $1 or 1 hour of their time to the defeat of this disease, then I win. And if we all continue to work together, we give of our time, our talents, and our resources in the search for an absolute cure for cancer, then yes, we'll lose some battles along the way. But one day, together, we will win this war. So thanks for listening. God bless. And get your colonoscopies.
Stephanie, another round of applause. That was an amazing speech, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us.